Hello. Welcome to another edition of What's New Wednesday. Tonight I am going to be showing you all a bunch of the, hey Wendy, a bunch of the new stuff that has arrived in the shop recently. Hi Erica. And then after I show you what's new, I'm going to jump into talking about Sashiko Samplers and how you get started with stitching up some Sashiko Samplers. So I've got lots of stuff here, so I'm just going to go ahead and dive right in. The very first thing that I want to show you all is this brand new sewing kit that just arrived. I put these in the newsletter last week, and they went pretty quickly, so I only have 2 of these left, but these are so lovely that I needed to show them to you all. So these are Misuya sewing kits. They're made by a shop in Kyoto that has been making needles and sewing supplies since 1819. And so what this is a little sewing kit. You've got the wooden storage box. It has a gold inlay of the Misuya logo on the top. And when you pop this open, you have a beautiful little sewing kit inside. What you have is a pincushion that's made out of kimono silk. And then you have the matching thread bobbin with black and white thread. Hello everybody, thanks for joining. Next you have a little scissor case or scissor sheath made out of the same kimono silk. You have a needle storage tube in here. You have these gorgeous little thread snips. Let's see if I can pull them out. You all know that I am a sucker for cute little things. So you've got the little thread snips, and these slide right into the case, the little storage case. You also have 2 packs of Misuya needles in here. You have a needle threader and another needle. So that's what comes in this little sewing kit. Like I said, I only have 2 of these left because when I put them in the newsletter last week, they went pretty quickly. So if you search for Misuya in the shop, this should pop right up for you. And I'll do the same thing as I did last time. Tomorrow I will put up a blog post with links to everything that I'm talking about here tonight. So that is the first thing I wanted to show you guys, was this adorable little sewing kit. The next thing that I have to show you all is pencil sharpeners. So I use these marking pencils all the time for all sorts of things. And for years, I've been using this CoverGirl pencil sharpener, which I don't even know where it came from because I don't wear makeup. So thanks, Robin. The quilt behind me is the Tula Pink City Block quilt. It's only 64 of the 100 blocks because I only made it that far, and I figured something was better than nothing, so that's what that is behind me. But anyway, so this is the pencil sharpener that I've been using for years and years. And it's fine, but I'm not always near a garbage can when I need to use it, so it kind of makes a big mess, and it's not the greatest. It snaps the tips all the time. So I went on a hunt for a better pencil sharpener, and I found some. So there's a whole bunch of new pencil sharpeners in the shop. The first one is this one, which is called the Kurukuru, and it is from Carl of Japan. If you've ever done any paper crafting, you might be familiar with Carl paper cutters. So that's the same company, and they have made this really cute and handy little pencil sharpener. So the way that it works is you take your pencil, you stick it in, and then you use the little handle and turn it around to sharpen your pencil. And it keeps all of your pencil shavings in there, so it's nice and neat and cute. Hi everybody, thanks so much for joining. So this is one of the new pencil sharpeners that's in the shop. There's also a whole bunch of new ones from a company called Dux. And Dux is a German company. They have been making pencil sharpeners in Bavaria since 1918, which is pretty cool. So their pencil sharpeners, I've got a few different kinds. I have these kind of fun designs with dots and hearts and stripes and stars. These are single pencil pencil sharpeners. It's a really sturdy plastic canister to keep all your pencil shavings. It's got an aluminum pencil sharpener. And the cool thing about these is that the blade is replaceable. So you can buy replacement blades and then use it forever, really. Will this be saved? Yes, I will be posting this video onto IGTV as well as the brand new Snuggly Monkey YouTube channel, so you can watch this later on whenever you have time. So these are the single pencil pencil sharpeners from Dux. There's also these really pretty pastel colored ones, and these have two different sizes. So if you have kind of chunkier pencils or regular standard pencils, you can sharpen both in here. And same thing, it's got two blades. Both of them are replaceable. You've got the storage canister. So these are going to last you a really good long time. And the last one is this Duroplast canister. And so, kind of fun fact, Duroplast was the material that was used to make the Trabant people's car in East Germany until the Berlin Wall fell. So that's what this material is that the canister is made from. It's super duper sturdy. Same really high quality pencil sharpener, storage canister. It's going to last a lifetime. So there are all sorts of new pencil sharpeners in the shop in case you are in need of a new pencil sharpener for your marking pencils, for the new Clover iron-on pencils, or for your colored pencils if you use them in your sketchbooks. You can now, under the office supplies and stationery section, you will find a whole bunch of new pencil sharpeners in there. Something else that is new and exciting is there are 12 new colors of Presencia pearl cotton. This is size 8. At the beginning of the pandemic, the factory in Spain got closed down for a long time, and so I was having a really hard time getting a hold of this, and I was getting really afraid that I wasn't going to be able to stock this anymore. But they seem to have picked production back up. I'm able to get most colors. I still cannot get a hold of the lavender $26.99, which is why a lot of the sets are sold out in the shop, because I use that color in a lot of different sets, like the color wheel, the ultimate set. So I'm still searching for that color. But meanwhile, there are now 12 new colors for you to choose from, like avocado, peacock blue, cranberry. So there's really fun new colors. I have them as a set if you want all 12, or you can get them all individually as well. Next up, we've got something new from Little House. If you've heard me talk about, these are my absolute favorite quilting pins. My friend Asha gave me this tin probably about 6 or 7 years ago now. And these are still the same quilting pins, hi everybody, that I use all the time. They're still super sharp. I have made tons and tons of quilts and masks and all sorts of things with these pins, and they're fantastic. So Little House just came out with same pins, and these pins are available in the shop in the tin, but they've just come out with this really adorable set of their same pins, but with a wooden storage case. So you get 80 of the glass head pins. You can iron over these. The tops will not melt. They're super sharp. And instead of the little metal tin, you get this wooden needle case. Thing to note is that the wooden case only holds about 12 to 15 pins. So you're going to need a pin cushion, a pin bowl, something to store your other 80 pins, because they're not all going to fit in here. But it's, you can see, they store in there if you want like a set of pins to keep in your travel bag, this is a really cute option. And a lot of the times these wooden cases, I used to sell them, but it was really hard to find cases that the cap would stay on really securely. And this one does. It's a really nice seal. Your cap's not going to go flying. Your pins are going to stay in there. So that's a nice new thing from Little House. If you've never used Little House pins, highly, highly recommend them. They either won the cute new wooden case, or this one also comes with 80 pins. And this is the little metal storage tin. They make great gifts too. So those are some of my favorite pins. I also have, if you are a fan of clover pins, I also have a new set of clover patchwork pins. You get 100 clover pins in here, the little plastic storage case, and these are also glass heads, so you can iron over them and they will not melt. So those are the clover patchwork pins. Those are new in the shop too. Hi everybody, thank you all so much for joining me tonight. The next thing that I'm going to show you is these new Stitchy Floss Bites from It's So Emma. These are brand new floss bobbins. They are really cute. They come in, there's 20 of them in the pack. There's 4 different cross-stitch designs, the scissors, thimble, needle, and a skein of floss. They are about 2.5 inches tall, so they're quite a bit bigger than your standard little plastic floss bobbin. The back is the really cute It's So Emma logo. What I really like about these is how versatile they are, because you can wind your floss onto the card like you normally would, but these 2 holes are big enough that you can also loop your floss through them. So, for example, if you're stitching, you're only using 2 strands, you cut off your length of thread, and then you've got those 4 strands remaining that you're not going to stitch with right now, you can loop them through the top of the hole. So it keeps you nice and organized. Like I said, they're bigger than your standard like DMC floss bobbins, so these aren't going to fit in like the plastic storage boxes. So you can put an O-ring through them to keep them all together and throw them in your bag. So these are they're called Floss Biddies. They're from It's So Emma, and you get 20 cards in the pouch. So those are super cute. Let's see, what else is over here? Going back to some stationery supplies, there are 2 new letter sets, the Black Cats and the Penguins. If you haven't seen these letter sets before, what you get in there is 12 sheets of lined paper. You get 4 really cute little envelopes, and you get these seals to close your envelopes, because these are not gummed or glued at all. So this is mine that I've been using for a while. I love pandas. These are really cute. They're just great for adding little notes if you're making a gift for someone, you're sending it out to them. I've got several animals already in the shop. I think there's alpacas, pandas, otters, and so the penguin and the black cat I just got listed today. So there's 2 new letter sets up there if you're like using these. There's also some new washi tape in the shop. There's 2 brand new washi tape sets. First is this rainbow set, which is 7 rolls of the thin, it's about 1/4 inch thick washi tape in rainbow colors. So that's really fun for planners, things like that. And then there is this set called Wamon, which is 6 rolls of Japanese-inspired prints. And this is more your standard, just under 1 inch thickness of tape. So along with the washi tape, there is also now a washi tape cutter in the shop. This is a little clip. I'm not sure if you can see that in there. And what this does is you clip it onto your roll of washi tape. It works anywhere between 10 to 15 millimeter thick tapes. You clip it onto the roll. It's got a serrated edge, and it gives you a nice, clean, easy cut. Hey, Amanda. So this is a really handy little washi tape tool, and you can find the washi tape cutter with the washi tape in the stationery section of the shop. So something that I use washi tape for when I'm sewing is I use it to mark off my rulers. So if I am cutting a whole bunch of 2-inch pieces for a quilt, I'll take a piece of washi tape and I'll mark off the 2-inch line, and that just makes it really quick and easy for me to visually see where I'm going to be cutting if I'm cutting the same line over and over again. So that's a really fun, easy way to use washi tape when you're sewing. Let's see, what else is over here? So, as I said earlier, I'm a sucker for cute little things. And when I saw these, I just had to have them. They are paper clips in these little matchboxes. They even have the strike pad on the side. And they come from Japan. So there's 2 different styles. And it's just the box design. Inside they're exactly the same. There's this blue triangle and this naval officer, which also has a teapot on the back. And these are little paper clips. They're made out of thick cardstock. So there's no plastic, there's no metal. They're really effective. And they're in tan, white, and black. You get 18 of these. They're about 1 inch big and just under half an inch wide. And they're really different. They're cute. So I've got a couple of those in the shop now. And those are called paper clips. And keeping with the stationery stuff, there's also a brand new set of colored pencils. These, if you're studying Japanese, they'll help you learn your Japanese. They've got all the color names written on there in Japanese. There's 12 pencils and 18 colors. 6 of the pencils are a single solid color, and 6 of the pencils are dual colored. And they come in this really handy little slim storage case. So those are in the shop now as well. And so last time that I did one of these sessions, we were talking about transferring your patterns and different ways to transfer patterns. And this is a brand new item that just arrived this week, and it is tracing paper. This is, so what you would do is you put this, it has 5 colors in here. There's blue, green, red, white, and yellow. So you put this with the color side on your fabric, you put your design on top, and then you trace your design, and it will transfer onto your fabric. The great thing is that there's white and yellow on here, so this will help you transfer onto dark fabrics, dark denims. So if you have like a Sashiko pattern that you want to transfer over, a simple embroidery pattern that you want to transfer over, this would be really, really handy. It's from Clover. It's called the Chakopi tracing paper, and that's now in the shop as well. Also from Clover, there is a new set of tweezers. So what makes these different is you can see the edge. It's got this flat kind of foot. And what's cool about it is that it lets you, the shape of it lets you get underneath a stitch and pull it out really easily. It also gives you a very sharp tip to be able to pull out little tiny bits of floss. What was the name of the colored pencils? Thank you, sorry. They are the, I believe it's Kitsuwa colored pencils. If you go to the stationery and gift section of the shop and click on pencils, they will pop up right there. And when I put up the blog post, I'll put the link to them directly in there. All right, so the tweezers, like I said, these are great for pulling out threads. They have a really nice sharp edge, no problem. And then they come in this little plastic sleeve for storing them. Then the next thing that is new to the shop, which I'm actually really excited about because you all have been asking for this for a while. Almost all of the traditional Olympus Sashiko samplers are now available in both navy and white. I used to carry almost all of them in navy and not very many in white, and now I carry all the designs in navy and white that are available. So that's exciting. You can get them as just the sampler by itself, or you can get them as a kit. If you get them as a kit, the navy one will come with a skein of white Sashiko thread and a set of needles. If you get the white one, then you will get the, thank you, I'm glad you're enjoying this. You'll get the navy Sashiko thread and a set of needles. So, and of course, I think now there's something like 150 different colors and types of Sashiko thread in the shop. So if these colors don't appeal to you, you can always just get the sampler and then pick out whatever colors you would like. So now I'm going to jump over and start talking about the Sashiko samplers and how it is you go about stitching them. Could white and navy be added as a filter to the shop site? I would love to just see the white ones. Thank you. So they pretty much almost all of them now are available as both white and navy. So when you search for them, they should all have a white version of them if it's available. I hope that makes sense. But I am actually working on trying to improve the site in order to be able to add filtering by color. It's just taking me a while to go back and add all of the colors into all of the listings. So that is something that I am working on, and hopefully within the next couple of months, you'll be able to search by color on the site. So that will be coming. So let's jump into talking about how you go about stitching these and what are the different kinds of Sashiko samplers, all that stuff. So Sashiko sampler, Sashiko style comes in, there's 4 different kinds of Sashiko. What you have probably seen and are most familiar with is called moyozashi or patterned Sashiko. That's this style. There is both the traditional Japanese designs and modern designs. These are the ones that are pictures, things like Mount Fuji. And so these are probably what you're most familiar with. Then you have what's called hitomezashi, which means single stitch or one stitch. These are much denser. As you can see, the stitches touch each other. And then there is kuguri-sashi, which means stitch and weave. These are some of my favorites. And then the 4th kind of Sashiko is called kogen. That's more similar to counted cross stitch, I think. So I'm not really going to talk about this very much, but in case you were curious, you can search for it. It's called kogen, K-O-G-I-N. So let's start with looking at one of the moyozashi patterns. So when you get one of these samplers, what you get is this little piece of paper and the design pre-printed on this cotton fabric. The most asked question that I get, because it comes like this, is do you stitch through one layer or do you stitch through both layers? And the answer is yes. You can do it either way. This one was stitched on one layer, and that second layer was used as the backing to make the back of the pillow. I am working on one right now that I will show you that I'm stitching through both layers at once. And what I did was I took the raw edge, I folded it in so that I don't have any fraying edges. There are different times where you would choose doing one layer over two layers, but really, honestly, it's personal preference. If you sew these like this with the edge turned in and you finish it, the other edges are finished, and at the end it's called a hanafukin, which is a kitchen cloth. So you can use these as like a hand towel in your kitchen, and it'll be all done. And then you would want both layers if you're going to be doing that. But if you're going to be turning your finished piece into something else, if you're going to be using it for in a bag panel, in a quilt, you're going to frame it, then you don't necessarily need to use both of the layers at once. Stitching through two layers is going to give you more drag on the thread, so it's going to put a little bit more hand fatigue in there. It's a little bit easier to stitch through just one layer if you're getting started. Something else, especially if you're interested in stitching on the white, that you want to keep in mind is if you're stitching on one layer and you're doing any thread hopping behind, you're going to see it. You're going to see some of the color. So that's actually something that I wanted when I stitched this. I wanted there to be like a light pink shading to the back of this. So I stitched this on a single layer so that you could see kind of a light pink behind the petals. That was on purpose. But if you're going to be, here's one that my daughters have been working on, and if you look closely, you can kind of see the black lines where they dragged across the back. So that's something to keep in mind whether you're stitching on one or two layers. But like I said, really do what you like, what is easier for you. Either way is going to be just fine. So the very first thing when you get started, if you look at the little piece of paper that comes with your sampler, this is going to tell you exactly how you need to stitch this. Sashiko is about looking for the longest possible line that you can stitch at one time. You're not stitching individual petals, you're stitching long, straight, well, kind of straight lines. So I'm going to show you over here with one that I finished how you would go about stitching this design. All right. So if we pull out the instructions and you look at the circle down here, it says number 1. So the very first thing they're telling you to do is to stitch the outline of the sampler. That's especially important if you're going to be using 2 layers, because that's going to keep your 2 layers in place and not have them shifting around as you're stitching. So the very first line that you're going to stitch is this whole outline. Then on here, there's a number 2 here and a number 3. So what you're doing is, once you've stitched that outline, the next thing you're going to do is you're going to start down here and you're stitching this vertical line all the way to the top. You're going to go over the next column and do the same thing and go all the way to the top. You're doing all these vertical lines. Number 3 is the opposite one. And you do that across the whole sampler. Next, you look at your card and 4 and 5 are over here. So what you're going to do is you're going to look for those same long lines, and that's what you're going to stitch going diagonally in this direction. And finally, 6 and 7 are up here, and what you're doing is your same thing, these long lines, and you're stitching them diagonally in the other direction. So you're not stitching individual petals, you're stitching the long lines, and once you stitch out those long lines, you come to the end and the design is there. That's pretty much how all of these Sashiko samplers work that way. There's a specific order, but you're basically stitching all your vertical lines first, then your horizontal lines, and then you stitch the diagonal lines. I am so glad that that's helpful. There is, I have another Instagram post where I kind of stitched that out in case you didn't understand what I was just doing. So I'll try to find the link to that and put that in the blog post tomorrow to kind of make that a little bit easier. I agree with you so much that I find these to be so meditative and relaxing to do. It doesn't require a lot of thought. Because you're doing just the one running stitch over and over, you can really kind of get into a groove with it. I highly, especially during the times that we're living through, Sashiko has been and continues to be such a wonderful, wonderful way to end my days. So if you haven't given this a try, it's so easy to get into. Don't let it intimidate you. So now that I've explained how you do the moyozashi designs, these are all the traditional designs are going to be like that. And all of them, if you look at the little card that comes with it, it'll break it down for you, telling you 1, 2, 3, which order you're going to do the lines. The modern designs are going to be a little bit different because they have, do I use a hoop? No, I do not. I don't stitch Sashiko in a hoop. I stitch it in hand because I will hold it, because what you're going to do with Sashiko is you are trying to put as many stitches as you can on your needle at once before you pull your thread through. So I keep it all bunched up in my hand. When I was teaching my daughters Sashiko, I started teaching them, the youngest was probably about 4 or 5. That's right, it is easier to do it without it so that you can scrunch it up on the needle. So when I was teaching my daughters to do Sashiko, I did put these into Q-snap frames for them because their little hands couldn't hold all the fabric. So I put those into a Q-snap frame, and that made it easier for them to be able to kind of get the grasp of the stitches. But I never use a hoop when I'm stitching. I always keep it in hand. That also makes it a lot more portable because you can fold this up really tiny and stick it in your bag and take it with you wherever you're going. So before I move on to going through the hitomenzashi designs, just a note on these kind of more modern designs, you're not going to have long lines to follow. So with these, you are stitching just kind of one element at a time. So that's the difference between doing the traditional ones and the more modern ones. But you are still going to kind of want to look for, when you look at your pattern, you know, where can I do the most continuous line of stitching? That's always what you're going to be looking for when you're trying to break down where you're going to stitch your pattern. So the next kind of sampler is the hitomezashi, which these are probably among my favorites. I always have Sashiko in my bag too. Not that I go very much anywhere these days, but I do always have one in my bag. So these designs, if you can tell, are much denser. There is, in this style of Sashiko, your stitches are meant to touch. These are done in that same method where you're not stitching individual little pieces. You're stitching all the horizontal lines first, then you stitch all the vertical lines, and then finally any diagonal lines. And at the end, that's how the design comes out. Last week, I put a blog post up, excuse me, showing you how to make a Sashiko face mask. And this is a hitomezashi design. I broke it down on the blog, so if you head over to the shop and click on the shop blog, this is the first post that'll pop up. And I break it down very clearly with pictures how you do the horizontal lines, vertical lines, and then finally the diagonal lines. And at the end, your pattern comes up. So to do this, I used these Sashiko grid samplers. These are blank. They don't have a design on them, but what they have is these dots so that, can I show the other side of the mask? Is that, I'm not sure what this inside? If this isn't what you want to see, let me know, and I'll show you the other side of what it is that you want to see. So I cut the mask pattern out of here. So these grids help you not have to mark up your fabric, so that you can just start drawing your design without drawing out the grid first. So that's what you use these samplers for. And there's the straight line grid, and then there's off-center grids. And these, I can show you some examples in a little bit of different patterns that you would use the off-center versus the straight line grids to draw. But like going back to this one, this is done the same exact way. So here I did it a little bit differently simply because I changed thread colors. So I did do kind of these diagonal lines first so that I would know where to stop with each thread. But within each section, I did all the vertical lines, all the horizontal lines, and then the vertical lines, and then the diagonal lines, and that's how the petals appear at the end. So you're not stitching individual petals, you're stitching lines. If you had done this design all in one color, you would go straight across the whole entire sampler with your lines, and then at the end, all the little flowers would appear. So these are a lot of fun. That's the one that I'm working on right now, is one of these, and so you can see I'm working on the vertical lines. There are no horizontal lines on this design, so I'll jump into the diagonals once I'm done with all the verticals, and at the end there'll be these little sunbursts. So those are some of my favorites. One of the questions that I get a lot is what kind of Sashiko thread to use with each kind of sampler. So my preference for this style, the denser, thicker hitomezashi designs, I like to use the thinner Sashiko threads, which the two main brands are the Daruma and Yokota. Either one of these are both really nice and thin, so you'll see your detail a lot better because the stitching is so dense. I like to use the thinner threads for this kind. For the kind of patterned ones, my favorite is always the Olympus thread. This is a really nice medium weight. It's the one that I include with all the kits, and it's my favorite for this kind. This is almost always what I use for when I'm doing mending jeans. So that's what I use. I also, for the third kind, which is the kuguri sashi or the stitch and weave, I use the thin threads for this as well, again because of how dense the stitching is. I think you see the detail a lot better when you use the thinner threads for these. So the kuguri sashi, there are right now, Olympus has two different designs. There's this one and this one. And these are, I think it'll make more sense if I show you the back. So as you can see, there is almost no rainbow thread on the back because the rainbow thread is woven on top of the stitches that you put in first. So just like all the other ones, with these, the very first thing you're going to do is you're going to stitch all your vertical lines, your horizontal lines, and then the final thing that you do is you weave your final thread through the top of the stitches that you've already put in place. Let me open one up so that you can see what the sampler looks like when you pull it out of the package. So this one is this one. So this is what it starts out looking like when you open up the package. And you're going to start out whatever you choose. So for me, I chose this off-white color as my base stitches. And with that off-white color, I stitched all of these little X's. First one direction and then the other direction. These patterns come with a bigger instruction book. It is all in Japanese, but it has really clear pictures that guide you through exactly how to do your base stitches and then how you weave the thread onto the top of it. Are those available in indigo and white? No, right now these are only available in the dark navy indigo color. I am trying to get a hold of the white ones. So hopefully within the next month or so, these will be in both navy and white, but right now they're just in navy. With both of these, because of how dense the stitch work was, I opted to stitch them through the 2 layers instead of just the 1. And another question that comes up a lot, and someone just sent it to me this afternoon, is about this frame. This is a 12 by 12 frame. I bought it at Michael's several years ago. I took the glass out, and what I have done is I took a piece of foam board and I cut it to about 11 3/4 so that it would fit inside here. And that's what this is on. I use little tiny applique pins, and that's how I stretch the sampler onto the board. Because I use that frame to take pictures of a lot of different samplers. So that's why I use the pins, because then I can remove it, put a different sampler in there. I also like to switch them up so I can look at different things in my sewing room. So that's what lots of folks have asked me about this frame, and that's what it is. It's a 12 by 12 inch frame. It wasn't custom made. Like I said, I think I picked it up at Michael's a few years ago. So if you cut the foam board at about 11 3/4, it'll fit right in there, and then you can frame your finished piece. Let's see. So that is pretty much how you stitch up these samplers. A couple of little tips to give you when you are stitching and you turn the corner for your next, to go down the next row. See these little bits here? You want to leave a little bit of extra floss. You don't want to pull that tight, because when you go to wash this is cotton, so it can shrink. You don't want everything to scrunch up if it does shrink at all. So especially when you're going on to the next row or you're turning a corner, you want to, this little piece that you drag, you don't want that to be super taut. You want to leave a little bit of give in there. As I mentioned earlier, I do not use a hoop. I stitch these in hand with the needles, the Olympus needles that come with all of the kits from my shop. You'll see that you have two separate needles. You've got this longer one and the shorter one. The longer one you use for doing long straight lines. The shorter one you use for doing curves, and that's why you get two needles in here. I have a ton of different kinds of Sashiko needles in the shop. These are probably the ones I use the most. They're really sharp. They stay sharp for a good long time. And with these two sizes, you can do just about anything. These are all the Olympus samplers that I've been showing you. There are other companies out there as well. I stock QH Textiles, a lot of their samplers, because I really like their designs. They tend to incorporate lots of different designs into a bigger one. The cool thing about these is that you're going to stitch them the same way that I just told you, except on a smaller scale. So when you start, this hexie here, then you'll look for the longest lines within here, and you'll stitch those all out. And you kind of use that same method for all of the different, you'll find the long curvy lines in here and stitch those out. But these are pretty cool because you get to try out lots of different patterns on one sampler. So these are QH Textiles, and I have lots of different ones. Can you use thinner thread for cross stitch? The thin Sashiko threads, I've never used this for cross stitch because so Sashiko thread is non-divisible. It's a single strand, and when I cross stitch, I railroad my stitches, which means I stick my needle in between the two pieces of floss in order to kind of fluff it out. And you wouldn't be able to do that with this because you can't get in between. This is just one single strand. So I've never tried using this for a cross stitch. It's not to say it can't be used for cross stitch. I've just never tried it, so I can't recommend it for that. Let's see. I mentioned earlier that this is what I used to make the face mask. These are the grid designs. Some folks have asked, where would you get ideas for drawing up your own Sashiko patterns? And the internet is a great source. If you search for Sashiko designs, you'll find lots. This is a fantastic book. It's called The Ultimate Sashiko Source Book. It's by Susan Briscoe. She has a lot of interesting history about Sashiko, but the greatest part is the back of the book is a dictionary of Sashiko designs. And she breaks down for you how you would draw them out in order to stitch them into whatever you want to, denim, any kind of fabric that you want. She's got traditional moyozashi designs, she's got hitomezashi, and I think she even has a couple of kugurisashi designs in here. So this is a great, if you're thinking about really getting into Sashiko, this is a great resource. This is a great one. Let's see, hold on. Do the dots on the grid fabric wash out when you're done stitching? Yes, thank you, Linda. So all of these samplers are printed in wash away ink. So they will all, the lines will wash away on any of them. It takes a overnight soak in cold water to get the lines to fade away. And if you look at the blog post for the mask, you'll see that there was still a little bit of the dots visible in the final pictures of this because I got impatient and I didn't wait the full 12 hours for it to soak. And I knew I was going to be washing this over and over again, and in the washing machine it was going to fade away anyway, so it didn't really bother me. But yes, for any of these, and even the QH Textiles ones come with a warning telling you not to even put a steam iron on them, because that might erase some of the lines. The Olympus ones aren't that; they're a little sturdier. They won't go away with steam. But yes, you can soak any of these samplers in water. So like if you just want to stitch a certain part and you want to leave another part blank, you in theory should be able to soak that, and the lines will disappear, and you won't see the lines that you didn't stitch. So thank you for asking that. I forgot to mention that. So back to a couple of different books. This is a Japanese book put out by Olympus. I got a copy because I'm one of their stockists, but I have not been able to find this in the US. So one day when we're able to get back to in-person classes and teaching, I'm really hoping to be able to teach some classes based on this book, because they've got some really amazing and beautiful project ideas in here. This is where I got this design from. It came from this book. So if in your internet wanderings you ever run across this book, it's a great one. Another one is Jessica Marquez's Make and Mend. She's Miniature Rhino here on Instagram, and she's got some patterns in here and shows you how to draw them out as well. So there's lots of different resources for you to be able to find designs if you want to experiment with drawing your own Sashiko designs and not relying on the pre-printed samplers. So I think that is everything that I have for you all. I am going to be doing a recap like I did last time on the blog tomorrow, where I'll post the video as well as links to everything that I talked about. I'll put links to the books and all of that stuff. And I will also be doing another giveaway. I'm going to put together a pack of some Sashiko samplers and threads and needles, and you'll have a chance tomorrow to enter to win that giveaway. And finally, if you have ordered from me in the last couple of months, oh, there's one question here. You also sell stencils for those. Oh, yes. For those with less gifted in drawing designs. Yes, there are also Sashiko stencils. I should have brought one of those out. That's what I use these pencils for all the time. There are Sashiko stencils that make it super easy to draw Sashiko designs on just about anything. And those are in the shop too. I think there's like, I think I'm up to about like 8 or 9 different designs. They come in 2 different sizes. And you can stack the pattern so that you can make it over as large of a surface as you'd like. So thank you for bringing up the stencils. I forgot to mention those. So to just one final note, if you've ordered from me in the last couple of months, you will probably have received one of these vote postcards. We are less than a week away from the election, so this is just my shout out to please, please, please vote. Your opinion matters, your voice matters, and you deserve to be heard. So please, if you haven't voted already, go out and vote. I went last week. I voted early and in person here in North Carolina, and it was really quick, really easy. I felt very safe. They had put so many precautions in place. It felt safer than going to the grocery store, honestly. So if you have your mail-in ballot, it is too late to mail it in, they're saying. So try to get that to hand it in person at your local Board of Elections if you still have your mail-in ballot. But please, please, please vote. All right. Thank you all so much for joining me. I will put this up tomorrow, and I will see you all next time. Thanks. Bye.